the things that people do at this time of the day, 6:14 a.m. and even earlier, is hit the pool for some morning laps. But Winnipeg's Seven Oaks pool out on Adsum Drive will be closed for 12 to 14 months for renovations. The main tank at the pool will close starting December 14th. According to the city, this is going to be a $3.5 million fix. It involves concrete and structural repairs, waterproofing, and tile replacement as well. The city says people can find alternate indoor swimming locations on its website. But you know what this is like when this is your neighborhood pool. We spoke to some pool users yesterday who said they were sad to learn about the closure. Just a note to our YouTube audience, not everyone agreed to be on camera.
Tony DiOrio.
Pool is closing, the Seven Oaks pool, for about almost 14 months. What do you have to say about this?
I'm going to miss it. I don't understand why it's got to be 14 months. They say capital project, so I guess it is what it is, but we're going to miss it. We're going to have to go to the other facilities, I guess, which are going to be busy because everybody is going to have to go somewhere if they want to participate. So I do it for exercise, and I had surgery recently, so I need to sort of rehab. So I'm going to miss it, and it's close by. So yeah, I don't understand why that, but I'm sure there's an explanation for the length of time. If they're redoing everything, it does need a lot of work inside. You know, you can tell it's getting tired, sort of thing. So, yeah, gonna miss it.
And how long have you been using this for?
Well, I moved here from BC, and even when we visited here, say 21, 22, I'd come and use the pool because I'm used to it from where I came from in BC. And yeah, since July of 23, pretty much regularly.
And now since this is going to close, have you thought of any alternatives?
Well, talking to some of the local fellas and folks that have been here for a number of years, Tommy Prince apparently, down on Jarvis, and Elmwood has a similar pool to this, and on Sargent, I forget the name of it on Sargent, but it's Cindy Clausen, that complex. And I've gone on tours of them, but I just haven't used them yet. So.
Hi, it's Kim Potted-Warney.
So Kim, the pool is closing down. How do you feel about it?
I'm sad about it. I use the pool daily to swim laps, so it'll be inconvenient, but I totally understand.
And have you thought of any alternatives while this is being closed?
Of course, the pool was closed before for renos, so I use Cindy Clausen.
Okay, and like, are you a regular swimmer here, and you come here regularly? And if so, how has this pool benefited you?
Oh yes, I'm totally a regular swimmer. I try to come 1 or 2 times a week. I've been using it since I lived here because it's our community pool, and I absolutely love it. It benefited me because it strengthened my lap training. I was a flight attendant and I needed to know how to swim, so I just brushed up at this pool and I loved it. So it's a little bit of an inconvenience, but you know what? I'd rather have a pool functioning properly than not. So I'm okay with them having to close it down.
Alyssa Nichols.
Closing down for renovations. How will it affect you?
Well, we usually use the pool, and my son comes here for swimming lessons, so it's kind of annoying to have to go to somewhere else in the city to do it because there's no other really close pools in this area, so it's a nuisance.
So have you thought of any alternatives where to send your son now?
Well, our only other option would probably be Cindy Clausen, which is farther. Not as close. Went through renovations, so I don't know what they're doing again.
My name is Veena. Last name is Salam.
Yeah, tell me, do you use the pool? How often do you use the pool? Since when have you been using?
I've been using him since my daughter was a small child, and these are my grandkids, and I come with my grandkids. And it's going to be sad for it not to be available for 14 months.
So what are you going to do for those 14 months? Have you thought of any alternatives?
We have to find another pool to take the children.
And how has this pool, as you mentioned that you've been coming here, getting your kids, grandkids, how has this pool helped your entire family? How grateful are you for this pool?
I am very grateful because my daughter learned to swim here, my kids are learning to swim here, and it's good for the community.
That was a CBC Zubina Ahmed on a windy day outside of the pool, speaking with people outside the Seven Oaks pool. So December 14th is closing day for the main tank. The pool is on Adsum Drive. It will, as you've been hearing, be closed to 12 to 14 months. And the work is extensive. So concrete, structural repairs, waterproofing, and tile replacement. Well, it has been almost 10 years since the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's 94 calls to action were released. Today, we're going to look at 2 calls in particular. They outline 10-year timelines around justice for Indigenous people. Calls 30 and 38 ask all levels of government to reduce overrepresentation of Indigenous people and Indigenous youth in custody within a decade. Well, that time's up, as I mentioned. Kyle Musique is here to tell us more. He's Métis from Treaty 8 territory. He's a reporter with CBC Radio, and I spoke with him at 6.
Good morning.
So the big question here, were governments able to reduce overrepresentation of Indigenous adults and youth in the justice system in this decade?
No, they were not. So according to numbers from Statistics Canada, they have arguably gotten worse. In 2014-15, Indigenous people represented about 26% of adults admitted into correctional services. In 23-24, that number has increased to 31%. So it's about a 5% increase over a 10-year stretch. Meanwhile, the number of youth admitted into correctional services in 14-15 was 32%, and in 23-24, it was 41%. So that's about a 9% increase over those 10 years. So in that decade, we've actually seen an increase in proportion of Indigenous people, both as adults and as youth, being admitted into correctional facilities. An important context to note here is that Indigenous people make up about 5% of Canada's total population, about 8% of Canada's youth population. So you can tell that both these numbers were already inflated. They're even worse now. The numbers have sort of stabilized over the past 8 years or so, but I do want to take all of this into account and just to say that the calls are still not answered. I mean, things haven't improved. They have arguably gotten worse. And I had the chance to speak with the Correctional Investigator of Canada, Dr. Ivan Zinger. Now, he can only comfortably speak to the numbers of adults in correctional facilities, but he shared a little context with me that I thought painted quite a stark picture. He says in 1997, the Supreme Court of Canada cited numbers that said 12% of federal inmates were Indigenous, and they called it at the time, quote, a crisis.
Today, in federal corrections, 33%, so 1/3 of the federal prison population is of Indigenous descent. So if it was a crisis back then, I don't know what it is now.
So that was Dr. Ivan Zinger. He also told me that the situation, in his view, has not improved and rather has, quote, significantly deteriorated.
So what are the reasons that the situation has not improved over the past decade?
Yeah, so when I spoke to Dr. Zinger, he said it's not for a lack of presented solutions on the table. He says Indigenous people are more likely to serve longer terms. They're more likely to be placed in both maximum security and solitary confinement. They're more likely to be transferred to places outside their community, more likely to be subjected to use of force, more likely to have their parole suspended or revoked, and are more likely to reoffend. Now, the Correctional Investigator Office, knowing all that, has been producing report after report with suggestions on how to reduce these high rates. One of the solutions that Zinger says would help is by building, funding, and putting more Indigenous inmates in healing lodges that are run by communities with a cultural approach to rehabilitation. But wholesale change like that has been pretty challenging to come by. Now, I reached out to Correctional Services Canada. They said that they are addressing the overrepresentation by, quote, enhancing cultural supports and streamlining release processes. They also said that they're providing funding to help Indigenous offenders who are reintegrating into society by helping them transition. But they said that they recognize that there is more work to be done as well.
What does the lack of progress on these calls say about where we're at with reconciliation?
Yeah, I think, of course, there's many ways to measure our progress, but by using this one, we haven't really made any at all. One thing, though, that I thought was really interesting that Dr. Zinger had shared with me was that, these high incarceration rates for Indigenous people actually might say more about other parts of society. Take a listen to what he had to say.
When it comes to the gross overrepresentation of Indigenous people in the system, you can basically use the incarceration rate, which is off the chart for Indigenous people, as a barometer to gauge the success and failure of public policies. If you see, for example, the trend seeing more and more over-incarceration to either stop or reverse itself, it would be probably because you're doing stuff at the front end in society correctly. If you do that, you would see the incarceration rate being impacted, but it isn't.
So that was Dr. Ivansinger again. So even though he's focused on incarceration specifically, he highlights these other places in society where there are holes and where there are often gaps that negatively impact Indigenous people. And to get back to the second question, Marcy, about, why hasn't the situation improved over the last decade? I think Dr. Zinger would say that a lot of it has to do with what's going on in what he calls the front end of society. So talking about Indigenous people having less secure housing or having less access to and funding for education. This idea that everything is connected, and those things are the result of these high incarceration rates.
So I know there's not a simple answer to this, but I'll ask the question simply. Does it mean that we've made no progress at all?
Not quite. I think there is a little bit of a silver lining here that Erwin Ellman helped me find. He's the president of Defence for Children International Canada. He was also the last child advocate for Ontario before that provincial government shuttered the office. And he shared a lot of insights with me about Indigenous youth in particular. In his experience in talking with Indigenous youth, nothing has really changed for them either. And it has sort of led to that feeling of hopelessness.
And when people are hopeless, and when people don't feel like they have a path forward, oftentimes that's where they come in conflict with the law for all sorts of reasons. That's why nothing has changed for those children. Have the rates changed, and has anything different changed in the lives of Aboriginal young people? And the answer is no. So no matter what government says they've done, nothing has hit really the ground in terms of the lives of children and youth.
So that was Erwin Ellman, but here's where that path forward might sort of kick in that he's talking about. He says that there's a difference between change and influence, and he said while things may not have changed, Ellman believes people like Murray Sinclair and the TRC report have influenced many people to think and see the world differently. So, of course, there's big difference between thinking and seeing and doing. But he says, I think his point is that the report still matters. This idea that talking about this stuff still matters, even though the governments have failed calls 30 and 38 in terms of hitting those timelines, it's still important to make progress to reduce these rates and to bring awareness to these issues.
All right, Kyle, thank you for your report.
Thank you so much.
Kyle Muzica, reporter with CBC Radio. We reached him this morning in Edmonton. Well, we're coming up to news time at 6:30, and you might have heard Heather mention that Prime Minister Mark Carney is slated to deliver a live address tonight to Canadians about the fall budget. Leaders are talking about it as well. NDP interim leader Don Davies was speaking from Ottawa yesterday. He's dismissing reports that the NDP are negotiating with the Liberals ahead of the November 4th budget in exchange for more party funding. Here's what he said to a reporter.
You have the budget coming up. There were reports that you had some conversations with Mr. McKinnon about potential more funding for the NDP in exchange for supporting the budget in some form or another. What do you have to say to these reports, and what would it take to get NDP support in the upcoming budget?
Well, those reports are 100% false, categorically untrue. There's been no discussions whatsoever with the government about exchanging anything with the government for our support for the budget. So it's simply not true. I think what you might be referring to is 4 days after the election on April 28th, I said that the NDP was seeking official party status, and that would be seeking financial support to support our work here as parliamentarians. We sent a letter to the Board of Internal Economy in June, and that letter's been sitting there ever since. And finally, any decision to give the NDP any kind of parliamentary resources to do our work here would require unanimous support by the Conservatives, the Bloc Québécois, and Liberals. So it's not even anything that could be exchanged. As I've said before, we're going to wait as a caucus for that budget to be tabled. It's a very important budget. We're going to analyze it when it comes out through the lens of whether or not it's good for working families. We've been very clear that we will oppose any attempt at imposing austerity on Canadians at a time when we think we need to invest. We need to invest in Canadian communities, Canadian companies, Canadian workers, and Canadian infrastructure. And we've been also very clear that we're going to be looking at this budget to create good family-sustaining jobs, build non-market affordable housing, and also strengthen our healthcare system. So we've been very clear with this government where we stand, and we'll wait till November 4th to see if the government responds.
Interim NDP leader Don Davies speaking to reporters yesterday. The budget is, by the way, a confidence vote. That means minority Liberals do need the cooperation of at least one other party in order for it to pass. We'll see what the Prime Minister has to say in his address to the nation about the fall budget tonight. A Winnipeg high school football player is in ICU after suffering a serious neck injury. It happened during the opening kickoff Friday. He's a grade 12 student. His name's Darius Hartshorn. He plays on the offensive and defensive line for the Sisler Spartans. He's been playing with the Spartans since he was in grade 9. He's also volunteered with the North Winnipeg Nomads. That's another team out, really popular one out in North Winnipeg. Sean Esselmont is the head coach of the football team, athletic director, and the department head of phys ed over at Sisler. The CBC's Bartley Kivas got a chance to speak with him yesterday.
I myself was very much involved in the, as the injury happened and calling the ambulance and things of that nature. So pretty raw in that regard, certainly for the team as well. But we, are rallying together. We had a meeting on Monday morning with the players and the family just to connect and get all on the same page of sort of where everything is right now and then where the future is going in terms of recovery and things of that like. So on the first play of the game, it was a very shocking thing to occur on the first play of the game. I have, been coaching football since 2011. I've been playing football for much longer than that. Never in my almost 3 decades involved in the sport has something like this ever happened. It was a shorter kick. It just happenstance, bad weather, ball sort of went short. He picked it up and ran with it.
What kind of guy is he?
He is probably one of the most genuine and wonderful young men I've had the pleasure of coaching in all of my time here. He has just such a big personality. He is everyone's best friend on the team, everyone's brother, and he has just been a wonderful and joy to coach for these past 4 years. I mean, I think it's been, a bit of a moving target in terms of emotion. I think certainly immediately after it happened in the game, the team very much rallied around not only his brother who's on our team, but just as a team in general, and went through that game, and at every time there's an opportunity to break it down as a team, the word of the day was "this is for Darius," and sort of that's continued on into early this week as we prepare for what comes next. Personally, it's difficult. I've said to a couple of people that the biggest thing for me right now is I'm trying to be very present for my boys on this team and this community, and I'm taking time with my family at home when I get home to deal with it on my own. This is one of those things where I think it's an absolute freak anomaly where you hear of them every once 5-10 years, some small town in Texas or something like that where something like this happens. It is not a regular occurrence. So there is an element of shock with that, but it is certainly not a common thing. So it's difficult to deal with in that regard. Just the outcry from both the Nomads community, our school community, our middle schools around us, the entire Winnipeg High School Football League, Jeff Bannon, Wade Miller with the Bombers. Most teams in our league have sent messages or well wishes or support. So it really speaks to that football is a big family thing, and when something like this tragic happens, we rally together as a larger family on a national level. Our plan is to wear a decal on our helmet that has the number 57 on it in honor of Darius. He is a tremendous athlete. He's someone that has been working out hard all off season, coming to our summer workouts, all that sort of stuff. He's exactly the kind of kid that you want to be part of your program. So we've been very blessed to have him.
Sean Esselmont there, the head coach of the Sisler Spartans football team in Winnipeg, athletic director and department head of phys ed, in conversation with the CBC's Bartley Kivas. Now, the commissioner of the Winnipeg High School Football League, Jeffrey Bannon, also released a statement. This came out on Monday after hearing about what happened in the game. Quote, Darius is still in hospital in ICU and has begun breathing on his own, end quote. He goes on to say they're waiting for swelling to subside so they can find out the full extent of what recovery will be. And as you heard, many in the community continuing to rally around the family and also the players. I mean, the young players that are impacted by this in the entire school communities and in that part of North Winnipeg. If you want to read more about the story, you can go to our website at cbc.ca/Manitoba. Canadians are losing hundreds of millions of dollars every year to scams. Now the federal government has announced these new measures to deal with financial fraud and abuse. So that includes a national agency to investigate and recover money from laundering, organized crime, and online scams. But will it work? What actually is in this? David Gerhardt's here to talk about it, head of the Department of Computer Science over at the University of Manitoba. Hi, David.
Morning, Marcy.
So how much of a difference do you think these new measures will help in stopping fraud? Every time I do an interview about it, we hear how difficult it is to get ahead of it.
It is tricky, and the key here with this strategy is that it is a wide national strategy that includes federal organizations as well as banks and cell phone companies and stakeholders. And so having a broad coordinated strategy, I think, is one of the key factors that should help reduce the incidence of fraud with this strategy.
A lot of the rules for banks are mostly voluntary, right? So is it enough to keep Canadians safe, or how much do we have to be, I guess, at the consumer level partners for any of this to work?
Yeah, so this new set of regulations actually does change the Banking Act a little bit, and so there are new things that the banks do have to do. But in addition to that, the banks and these new federal organizations are coordinating on a voluntary but a code of conduct to address a new kind of fraud that we're seeing, which is fraud related to personal relationships. So if you imagine a situation where a relative is taking care of an older adult and keep taking care of their finances, operating their bank on their behalf, and maybe they sort of skim a little off the top for themselves. This is fraud, and this is a new and emerging sort of area of fraud. This voluntary code of conduct is intended to be, first of all, built in coordination with the banks, and so they have an investment in it. And also to be able to sort of respond more quickly so that you don't have to sort of wait for regulations on this new idea to come into play before we can actually act on it.
And what about the idea of responsibility? How much responsibility should, the banks and the cell phone companies take when it comes to their role in protecting people from scams?
Yeah, this is always a good question because often the onus is sort of put on us as the end user, right? Don't click that link in that email, and if you do, then it's your own fault. But the reality is that, end users are not familiar with the ways in which fraud is changing, the kind of strategies that fraudsters use, and the banks are, because they have access to this massive collection of data. They see all the transactions, and they can identify the patterns that indicate that maybe there are, transactions that are illegitimate. Same with cell phone companies. When text messages come to us and they seem a little fishy, we're not quite sure. Well, the cell phone company has much better information about whether a text message is legitimate or not. And so giving the banks and cell phone companies a bit of responsibility to say, this text message, here it is, but maybe be careful with it.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to keep up, as you started by saying there, with all of the different things, because you're not sort of obsessed with every piece of it until it happens to you. And then all of a sudden you might go, hang on a minute, what is this? How can AI help in this? I understand that there's a role there.
Yeah, that's right. We find that the scammers are using AI as a strategy to build trust, right? To develop new images or new videos that can establish trust between the scammer and the victim. But if the bad guys are using AI, shouldn't the good guys use AI too? And this is what we're finding is that AI has this power of pattern recognition, right? That it can identify patterns much more broadly and much more in connected ways that regular humans really can't. And so throwing AI at the problem means that we have an ability to identify the new strategies that fraudsters are using as they're coming out, and then develop strategies to respond to them.
For the regular person, what's key to protect yourself from a scam? I know we said that it shouldn't all be up to us, but obviously we do have to think about some things on our own here.
Yeah, that's right. Because in the end, if you're the one who clicks the link, then you're the one whose bank account gets you get the money stolen or the information removed. The key is really what we call data hygiene. This is about being careful about your information and being aware when information is being requested that's maybe unreasonable, right? If you get asked for your social insurance number or for your home address or for your mother's maiden name, then maybe you want to be a little bit careful about that. And you put that in the context of all the other sort of regular pieces of advice that we give, which is things like, change your passwords regularly and use two-factor authentication whenever it's available, and make sure you're always contacting your institutions on legitimate channels and not on sort of, text messages or weird phone numbers. So although it should be, the responsibility of all of us to reduce this fraud, in the end, if you're the one clicking the link, then you need to, or at least it behooves you to be aware of the kind of things that might be happening.
So let me ask you some of this, because right now I know that in my life, and I'm sure in a lot of people's lives, whenever there's some kind of an upgrade done, then I have to upgrade my security. And sometimes I have a question about, okay, hang on, what's the best way to go about it? Facial recognition versus two-step verification, as annoying as it is, those numbers that come up constantly, versus changing your password, I don't know, once a month. I'm not sure what the going advice is. What keeps us safest? I mean, obviously all three, but is one of those sort of the top of the line for the best protection?
Yeah, so two-factor authentication means two different things that you're doing. So a password and a face scan, or one of those numbers and a text message. Two different ways to confirm that you are who you say you are, and that's definitely the best way to make sure that these things are secure. Because then, if one channel gets compromised, the other channel is maintained, right? So passwords are a terrible way to maintain systems, but they're sort of what we came up with first, and they're universal. But passwords are hacked all the time and are easy to break. And so if you combine a password with something else, then the password is sort of step one, and the face scan or the thumbprint or whatever is step two. And that's why we call it two-factor authentication. So that's definitely the best way to keep secure.
I mean, if you are in a site that you use regularly and it doesn't seem to have that, are there times where you can request that? Or should you ask whether or not they have it, and maybe they just haven't automatically signed you up for it, for example?
Yeah, this is a really difficult question because sometimes, it's expensive to implement two-factor authentication because the company then has to have, security people and protocols to maintain these different ways of doing things. If they don't, then changing your password regularly is the key. And using a password that is long and complicated and difficult to guess, which is frustrating, but there are password protection systems on most computers these days that will pick a password for you and then save it for you so that you don't have to remember it the next time.
I think so. A lot of people just avoid the whole password keeper thing because it feels like if I'm going to keep my passwords all in one place, and that gets hacked, isn't that going to defy my, security? Isn't that going to cancel everything out? What's your sense of that?
Yeah, well, the expectation is that the password keeper is more secure than your regular passwords would be. And it is because it's on your computer, right? The passwords that you use in the world are out in the world somewhere, and they can get stolen from you or from the other side, right? The password keeper is yours. It's on your computer. It's secured by your own whatever security protocols you want to use. And so it is a bit more secure. And it does allow you to have more reliability with different passwords on every system, right? This is the other thing that people will sometimes do is just use the same password for a lot of different sites because it's easier to remember. But then if it gets hacked in one place, then it's compromised in the other place as well. So these password keepers are definitely a positive way to increase security.
All right. Thanks a lot, David. Appreciate your time.
You're very welcome.
That's David Gerhardt. He's the head of the Department of Computer Science over at the University of Manitoba, and that is where we reached him. If you're traveling to the U.S. for more than 30 days, you may be photographed and fingerprinted at the border for data collection purposes. Now, that's not brand new. We first learned of that procedure back in April when U.S. President Donald Trump ordered all foreign visitors to register with the U.S. government. But it is new for Canadians going through the process this year, especially if you're a snowbird and you're going to make your way down south to escape the winter season for a length of time. Brian Jameson used to do that. He's a Manitoba snowbird, or he was for years. He lives in Brandon. He's been going to Florida every winter for 14 years. He joined us back in April to talk about why he made the decision to sell his seasonal home there. He says this winter will be his first one spent at home here in Manitoba in over a decade. So we thought we'd check in with him again. Good morning, Brian.
Good morning.
So I know when we first talked, you shared what a difficult decision this was to sell your home in Florida. Tell me a little bit more about why you're choosing not to return to the States this winter.
Well, we're choosing not to return to the States due to the fact that we're essentially in, I guess you would call it an economic war with the U.S. And we just chose to spend our money in Canada as Canadians rather than give it to a regime that we don't necessarily agree with at all.
How have you wavered since we talked in April? I mean, now it was a hard decision as you explained, but now we're getting into those winter months.
Yeah, it's still a hard decision. It still was a hard decision. We have a lot of friends down in the U.S., and we are very sorry not to be able to see them this winter, but they understand due to the circumstances, and we're going to be returning to our roots and wintering in Canada.
So I was going to ask you if you looked, eyed up another place that's warmer in the winter to escape to, but you're going to stick it out here?
Yes, we've been looking out on our west coast and on our east coast, but haven't really found anything much yet. Well, actually, there is a lot, but not within the time ranges that we would like to spend away from our central Canadian cold weather. So.
Yeah, it's hard in this country, right, to find somewhere that's going to be much warmer than Manitoba earlier, right, to make it worth it.
Yes, and the older you get, I didn't believe it when I was younger, but it does get harder to spend cold winters here in central Canada.
What do you think about the registration requirement, as I mentioned, for foreign travelers? Have you heard about people that have gone through this then, being fingerprinted, for example?
I've heard just a couple of stories about that. I haven't, gone the lengths to actually confirm those, but I'm guessing that it's in place at some of the crossings, and I've been told it's at the discretion of some of the border guards as well. So I don't really understand why they would be insisting on that, but I guess it's their prerogative to do so.
It's one thing to sell your home. I mean, obviously that's the big decision, but I'm curious whether or not you're even traveling to the States right now.
No. We like I say, our money stays in Canada. It stays primarily in Manitoba or in Ontario, and that's we haven't even considered traveling at all, except possibly down east to Niagara Falls, where friends from the U.S. would drive up into Niagara Falls to meet us there. But that's about it.
What have you heard from, if anything, from other Canadian snowbirds about their plan this winter? Have other folks sold or been still considering selling maybe?
Yes, there are friends of ours that are considering selling, and I feel very bad for them because they had just bought recently. And there are friends. There was a lot of friends from our park where we were in Florida who have sold, and the park has there is essentially very few Canadians, I believe, left in that park.
What was the process like about selling your home? Did it go quickly, or how did that work for you?
No, it didn't go quickly. And essentially everybody was taking quite a loss on it. At the time, the park was under new ownership, and the rents increased, by maybe just over 100% in the space of 3 years' time.
Wow. Okay.
So that angered a lot of people, including our American friends too. So that's when the sales started, and then after the election in the U.S. last November, that kind of put the nail in the coffin, so to speak. And we practically, to a person, Canadians, decided to sell and leave.
Can you imagine a day? I just want to interject here because I'm just curious. Can you imagine a day when you might go back to the U.S.? Like you've talked about your convictions, so I'm just wondering what it would take for you to feel comfortable going back to that country.
Well, it would take a change in the government, and it would take a change in their policies towards Canada. So,
Brian, thank you very much. I hope you land somewhere warm, if not for a property for a visit this winter. Appreciate having you on again.
Okay. Yes, we are going up to like Elkhorn Resort in Clear Lake in the like in Clear Lake.
All right, Manitoba made getaway. Everyone's supporting those.
Exactly. So that's what we're doing.
You take care. Thank you.
Okay.
That sounds nice right now, escaping to a resort, maybe a little hot tubbing on a day that's dipping below zero. That's Brian Jameson. He's a Manitoba snowbird. We want to do a follow-up conversation with him now that the weather's turning. He sold his home in Florida this spring. He will now spend the winter here, as you heard, in southern Manitoba. Right now, let's turn our attention to a lynx. After months of treatment and recovery, a baby lynx is headed to a new home. Wildlife Rehabilitation Center took in the animal in September. It's the first lynx the center has taken into its care, but now it's going to go live at the Assiniboine Park Zoo. Zoe Nakat is here with an update, Executive Director of Wildlife Haven. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy.
So tell me more about the condition this little lynx was in when she showed up. She had an eye problem, right?
That's correct, yeah. So she came in very young, orphaned, should have been with her mom, but unfortunately, locals tell us that the mom was killed by dogs, and that this baby lynx was also attacked by a pack of wild dogs. So she came in, starving, she hadn't had food, and she had this eye injury. So our team did an excellent job. We were able to stabilize her and start that treatment on the eye. And so she's been getting stronger. She's been getting, more comfortable in her environment, more curious, which is all really good signs. But unfortunately, that eye injury has just progressed.
Is she losing the eye or blind in the eye, or what's going to go on? Do we know?
So at this time, we know that there's permanent scarring and there is some cataracts forming. There's still some discussions between, are we going to operate to remove the eye, or is, ongoing treatment the best option? And we're in conversations with the team at Assiniboine Park Zoo to figure out what's best for her welfare and long-term health.
Where'd she
come?
That
hasn't been determined.
Sorry to interject there. Where did she come from, Zoe? Like what part of the province?
So Swan River Conservation Area, so north of Brandon.
Okay. What's it been like to care for her? I mean, people are seeing the pictures on YouTube, and I mean, she's a little cutie patootie floofball, and anyone that has cats, it's hard not to see a cat as a cat as a cat, right? Look at those paws.
Yeah. It's been a delight for our team, right? Like, we all have such a passion for these wild animals, and knowing that she, faced all, against all odds, survived, and some folks picked her up and got to Wildlife Haven, like, just that is just such a feat already. So the fact that we were able to nurse her back to health has been, we feel very privileged to be part of her journey, and a really good challenge for our team, making sure that she has the right food, the right medications, and the right enrichment to make sure that every day she has a chance to learn how to jump and scratch and climb and do all the things that a lynx should do. So we feel quite privileged to have been part of her journey.
No doubt. There's just a picture that passed. She's sitting on one of those classic sort of scratch pad things.
Yeah.
How big is she right now? Like, how many pounds, or physically, how big is she?
Oh my gosh, I don't have the pounds on me, but she grew quite a bit. So I'd say she's the size of like a medium dog by now. So she grew very quickly. Yeah.
Is it because of the eye and what's going to happen with that permanent injury that you feel the Assiniboine Park Zoo is going to be the best place for her?
Yes, exactly. So, at Wildlife Haven, we treat thousands of animals every year, and our goal is always to release to the wild, but we need to do that responsibly and ethically. So there are some thresholds that we have for each species to know to what degree will the animal have, a good chance at life and survival out in the wild. And with lynx, it was very difficult because there's not a lot of data, but there's a lot of things that we do know. We do know that they're nocturnal hunters. We do know that they use their eyesight for, prey stalking and all these things. And we were able to consult with experts across Canada to make sure that we were, considering the right things. And so with that sight affected, we just can't release her back to the wild and expect her to have a normal wildlife.
When's she heading to the zoo, and how are you getting her there?
Yeah, so it'll be probably sometime next week. We're still in talks with their team. And the really nice thing is that the transfer will be pretty seamless. Wildlife Haven works with the Assiniboine Park Zoo on a regular basis, whether it's with our patients or to consult on cases. So their vet team already knows about her. They've been giving us advice and vice versa for several weeks already. So, she's small enough. We're going to put her in a dog kennel, drive her in our car, and send her over to our friends at Assiniboine Park Zoo, and there she'll, of course, need some quarantine and ongoing treatment on that eye, which we will still be involved in to some degree. So we're expecting a quite a seamless transfer, which feels good for our team, certainly.
Oh, she's hard not to fall in love with in the pictures. I know she's been a bit of a social media star. She's popped up in my threads. Thanks very much for being with us, Zoe, for the update.
Okay, thanks for your interest.
That's Zoe Nakata, the Executive Director of Wildlife Haven Rehabilitation Centre, talking about this lynx that was in their care. This is the first lynx the centre has taken into its care, and because of its injuries, which will be not sustained, well, the injury won't be sustained, it'll improve. However, the lynx won't be suitable to return to the wild, so because of that, the lynx will head over to the Assiniboine Park Zoo. A Ukrainian mother, as we've been reporting, says she's concerned about safety in schools after her 14-year-old daughter was assaulted by several teenage girls, allegedly, in her high school washroom at Oak Park High School. We're not naming the mother to protect the daughter's identity.
I saw my daughter in a shock. One friend was with her. She had a scratch on her face, on her back, big bruise on her forehead, big bruise, swollen bruise on her right leg, one more bruise on her left leg.
On Monday, as a follow to this story, we learned more charges had been laid after another Ukrainian teen was assaulted at school. The girl's mother says her daughter was told about another assault which took place the day before involving another Ukrainian newcomer. Pembina Trails School Division has confirmed the second incident. Winnipeg police say 3 girls are facing charges in relation to 2 separate attacks at the same school. Here's how the mother of that first alleged victim reacted to the second.
I was shocked. It's not supposed to be like this, absolutely. And I'm so sorry that other Ukrainian family go through, because I totally understand that this is so hard. So, for example, for me, I didn't sleep at all last 2 weeks. We are under stress.
To talk about the bigger picture and where we're at with school-based violence and bullying in this country, I spoke with Tracy Vaillancourt after the show yesterday. She's listened to those clips, as you'll hear. She's the Canada Research Chair in School-Based Mental Health and Violence Prevention.
Good morning.
So you're listening to this. Obviously, we have now, allegedly 2 assaults, 2 different young girls. What's your initial reaction to this?
It's a little bit shocking. I mean, I've been studying violence for 25 years, so not much shocks me. But what's a little bit unique about this situation is that you have girls attacking girls in a physical way. It's not to say that it never exists, but girls tend to be a bit more sophisticated in their use of aggression. They'll spread rumors, they'll exclude somebody from the peer group. They typically don't use physical violence.
How common, do we know how common overall violence is in any form among teen girls?
It'd be less than 1% of the population would use it. It's very rare for girls to use physical violence. Again, it seems a little bit, there'll be some viewers who will say that doesn't comport with what their view is because they can think of an event or a person who's done it, but it's just the saliency of it that's going to make it vivid in their recollection. The truth of the matter is, again, I've studied this for 25 years. We don't see girls doing this too often.
In terms of what you do see, is there an escalation in students overall, like in boys, with violence in schools? What's the distinction there? I'm just trying to look at the compare.
So boys use this mixture, a melange of different modes of aggressing against others. So they'll call names, they'll use indirect aggression, of course, they'll spread rumors and exclude from the peer group, and they'll use physical aggression as well. Most adolescent boys curtail their use of physical aggression. So it's a sort of thing that peaks in early childhood and then comes down precipitously after that. There's some adolescent boys who are life course persistent in their use of physical aggression. That represents about 10% of kids who were aggressive to begin with. So for the most part, we don't have teenagers around our country using physical violence against each other. I know it's going to sound a little bit odd to a lot of viewers because we see it in the media a lot. Again, these are very salient experiences, so they tend to be something we recall quite easily, but the data don't support that this is something that is done often by teenage boys and definitely not by teenage girls.
Do you know from your research what would lead either a teenage boy or a girl to go from, as you described, for a verbal attack, for example, to escalating to choose some physical violence?
So I think in the case of the girls attacking the two Ukrainian girls, I would bet that it probably has to do with some kind of reputation, a perception of a reputation violation, and or intersexual competition, because those are usually the reasons why girls would be physically aggressive towards another girl, which means that they think that she said something bad about them and they're defending their honor in a sense, or they're interested in the same person romantically. And it's kind of like, it feels a bit yucky to kind of say this, because you would think that we would be a little bit more complicated than this, but the truth of the matter is that's really what drives girls and women's physical aggression. For boys, it's a little bit more varied, but certainly reputation attacks get there. Intersexual competition are part of it. Some of it is bravado and the like. The other unique component of this, well, it's not unique, it's actually what we tend to see when girls do use aggression in this manner. It tends to be with a cluster with other girls. So they don't do this sort of thing in isolation. They do it with other girls. And then they're in a way, there's this thing called de-individuation. So when you have a lot of other peers present, your role in the event tends to be less thoughtful. You, in a sense, think you're anonymous. You don't think about the repercussions of your behavior. So groups for teenagers are really bad for their appraisal of risk and the like. So it doesn't surprise me that there's other girls present.
Speaking of others who were present in this case, the first case, we understand the incident was filmed by a bystander in the washroom stall. What questions go through your mind about that person, or what should we understand about that dynamic?
This bugs me, and I see it all the time where an individual will record the event instead of using the phone to call for help. And they usually defend their behavior by saying, they didn't know what to do. They thought if they recorded at least, then that would provide some documentation of the event that would help the victim. So those are true points. They definitely exist. I think the better thing to do if you're a bystander is to get help, if you can. Now, if the individual was hiding in the bathroom and was afraid to get involved and, is recording it for the reasons we just addressed, then I'm okay with it. But more often than not, the peer group records the event, circulates it broadly before any adult in their community is aware of it. They're not good bystanders when they do that. So they can justify what they did until they're blue in the face. But the truth of the matter is a better citizen would then get help if they can.
What trend are you seeing when it comes to school-based violence across Canada right now?
There seems to be a little bit of an uptick, and the data always lag behind. So the kind of data that we get access to tends to be dated by a few years. I have a large study where we're lucky where we can get data right away and look at this. There's a little bit of an underreporting that happens at schools as well when it comes to serious events. These ones are hard to ignore again because it was so salient, it was so obvious, there was a recording. But when I hear from school boards all the time telling me that they've noticed an uptick and they have referrals, like office referrals to the principal's office going up, I pay attention to it because that is very good evidence that there's an increase. So the data at this point seems to suggest that there is a universal uptick across Canada.
Do we understand why?
The one thing about aggression is it tends to be contagious. So when you see an uptick, it tends to, think of it like a virus. It's in a sense contagious. Aggression begets aggression. So when we don't have a good handle on it, we tend to see this, this could get carried away and become even more of a problem than it is. So that might be what's driving this.
We've done individual stories here now in Manitoba. I mean, obviously these cases, but we also had the Teacher Society with they put out a report last year talking about in schools, reflecting what you're saying, more violence in classrooms and student on student, student to teacher. And we also are hearing, in this case, that one of the girls is staying home because one of the perpetrators in the group was allowed back at school. We also did an interview with Inner City Youth Alive. They work with a whole bunch of kids, and they said they work with a lot of kids that stay away from school because someone that's been violent is at school. So this is affecting a whole bunch of people. Do you have thoughts, given your area of expertise, about what schools could do to reduce violence and bullying, given how complicated this can get fast?
It is so complicated, and it's going to be really hard to just come up with one solution. The evidence suggests that we reduce violence by having more supervision, better supervision, and more supervision. So that would be a really easy fix. But of course, it's not going to address all of the problems. But if we had more adults keeping an eye on kids, then things would be a lot better. One of the issues that we can't address is like that schools have their hands tied in a lot of ways because of privacy legislation. The individuals who are involved are also young people, and we don't want to put them at further risk. The studies are really clear that when you suspend or use expulsion on kids who are in trouble, they tend to then have even more problems and are a threat to their communities even more than what they started off as. So it is hard, because if I was victimized or if my child was victimized, I certainly would be thinking about their rights and wanting them to be safe. And they absolutely have a right to be spared from oppression and humiliation and violence in schools. But then we also have young people who are engaging in this behavior who are vulnerable, and we have to be taking care of them as well. So it is an impossible situation in so many ways. We tend to want to take out our pitchfork right away and address it swiftly and make sure that they're so severely punished. But at the end of the day, that punishment comes with consequences that could also put people at risk for the future. So we have to be thinking about all these factors when we're making decisions.
The school and the division, to your point, aren't discussing the incident or the consequences the students will face. I do wonder, though, after many years of talking about guidelines and policies and anti-bullying initiatives and things that are on the books, whether or not we know if they work.
They don't work very well. And I've said this and I'll say it again. I've been at this for 25 years, and maybe I'm not good at my job and that's why we haven't reduced it. But we know that we can get a reduction at best at about 20%. And I mean, that's better than nothing. But a large part of the issue is engaging the bystanders. I don't think the programs that we've had in the past were really good at implicating them in our intervention. Or involving them, implicating is the wrong word. And so I think that we need to be rethinking how we're doing interventions on bullying. Bullying interventions need to be rethought for sure. So 20% at best, and that's heartbreaking because we have about 30% of kids in Canada are bullied, and 10% of them are bullied on a daily basis, and they're suffering greatly, and we're not able to manage this situation.
We could talk for hours. We don't have hours, but I wonder, before I let you go this morning, whether or not there's anything you feel is imperative to add that's outside of what we've discussed already.
I think just a better relationship between families and schools would be really important too. If you ever have the occasion where the school contacts you about your child's behavior, listen to them. They don't make mistakes. They are calling you because something's off and they want your child to do well, and work with them, because really reducing their externalizing behavior and making sure the rights of others aren't violated is really important. So I think that if you get that uncomfortable call, be open-minded, listen, and work with the schools.
Tracy Vinecourt, thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you. Take care.
Vinecourt, the Canada Research Chair in School-Based Mental Health and Violence Prevention. She's also a professor at the University of Ottawa, as you heard, been studying this for years. I spoke with her after the show yesterday on the heels of these two alleged incidents where Ukrainian newcomers were encountered violent incidents, assaults at Oak Park High School in Winnipeg. Winnipeg's Water Tower District development is one step closer to taking shape. Shindico Realty announcing yesterday they've purchased just over 14 acres of land. This is at the southeast corner of Archibald and Marion in Saint Boniface. So the plan is to develop their part of this into a retail centre. It's part of a larger plan with Alberta-based Alexa Developments to develop 165 acres of the old Canada Packers public markets lands into parks, commercial and industrial buildings, and then 2,000 units of housing, mixed-use housing, mostly condos, we understand, and apartments. The site was once home of the Union Stockyards and Canada Packers Meatpacking, as mentioned. That was demolished 25 years ago. What will it look like in the future? Well, Sandy Schindelman is with us to talk about it, founder and chairman over at Shindico Realty. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy.
So why'd you want to be part of this project?
Well, it's become full circle. 52 years ago, I worked in the Union Stockyards as a cattle buyer and provided a lot of the meat that went into the Burns plant, now a Maple Leaf hog plant, but it was a beef plant at that time. And so that was my old stomping grounds. When the opportunity came, Rob Scaletta of our office and his client, Alexa Developments, Calgary-based, looked at the land and saw the great potential that it had. We decided to come on board. And in a couple of ways. Shindico, with Rob, is leading the development and the entitlements and dealing with the city and the province and all the levels of government that you have to do to get the infrastructure put in that the developer paid for all the infrastructure, by the way. Then it became time to kick it off. Alexa is in the business of joint venturing the multi-res, and we have a joint venture. We have I got Alexa talking to me now.
No worries. So they're kicking off all of the residential and mixed use, and you guys are going to be doing partnering retail, right?
Well, no, we're doing the retail ourselves, and we have a joint venture on about 10 acres of multifamily right adjacent to that. That joint venture is with Alexa. So we'll be able to put, about 700 units of concrete rental, the style of which we've been successful with at our Taylor Avenue development.
I was going to ask you about that, Mr. Schindelman. Like, what would it compare to? And you're saying Taylor, so that would be by the Walmart on Taylor and then the apartment behind there?
Yes, well, in front, actually. We have one more going in. We hope to be in the ground in about 3 months on a third building there. But it's a high amenity space, concrete, soundproof as much as humanly possible, big balconies, a common space, kind of like as close to a resort as you can get in a rental apartment building.
What do you envision the impact will be on the Saint Boniface neighborhood and on Greater Winnipeg? How do you see this connecting in?
Okay, yeah, very good question. Well, this is the true definition of infill, as Taylor is. It'll lift the entire neighborhood up. We expect values to increase once we get going across the street where there's a lot of older product, dating from the 40s and the 30s. So that will have an opportunity to take advantage of the traffic that we hopefully will be bringing there. The retail is about 14.3 or 4 acres, and it's divided into two. One site is about 3 acres, and that'll be good for QSR, quick-serve restaurants, drive-thrus, etc. And we're hopeful to have a grocery anchor and discount store anchor on the other side that will serve the existing neighborhood. Never mind all the people that we expect to be living on the site and working on the site.
Do you have now own all the land that you need to make this development happen then?
Yes.
And this used to be industrial land, obviously. So what still needs to be done in terms of remediation?
All the remediation has been done that we needed to do. Every development mitigation has been met, and so it's shovel ready. And it's an interesting development in that we also have our eye on a 20-acre industrial site to do an industrial park, a la the same as we've done out in the Plessis Business Park. And we're selling shovel-ready land. So we have industrial land for sale that we'll sell to other developers or users. We have Alexa's marketing mixed use, CMU use.
And then the retail.
Where people put retail and services on the main floor and apartments above. They're also in discussions for a joint venture, Alexa and another developer, to do assisted living. So we're excited about the possibilities for all the things that can happen there.
And just for a couple quick clarity questions, assisted living on that site?
Yes.
Yes. And can you share with us what you paid for the 14 acres?
I can't because I don't know.
Okay. What about the total cost of the whole project? Do we have a sense of what that is? I mean, given the extensive plan here.
165 acres, I guess it'll probably be $1 billion when it's finished, the build-out.
I was just trying to confirm because I know that the Winnipeg Free Press, of course, has also been reporting since your announcement yesterday. And Alexa, your partner, told the Free Press it was $1.5 billion for the whole project.
Yeah, I guess with the build-out, it'd be $1.5 billion.
Yeah. When do you hope to have shovels in the ground on this?
In the summer of 26. We hope to have the retail taking occupancy in 27, late 27. And the residential will be a little longer because of the time to build. Typically, it takes about 2 years to build that kind of a project.
Yeah. Sandy, go ahead.
If we hope that the city doesn't slow us down because there's a dire need for housing.
Thank you very much for telling us about this. A lot of people in the city have been watching that land for many years, so we appreciate you sharing details of the development.
Well, thank you, Marcy, and thank you for having me on.
Thanks for being with us. Sandy Schindelman, live on CBC, founder and chairman at Shindigo Realty, giving us more information about an announcement they made yesterday on their site about their part in Winnipeg's Water Tower District development in Saint Boniface. Well, next on CBC, hope for Huntington's. An experimental gene therapy is showing potential in slowing the debilitating progression of Huntington's disease. The European biotech company that developed the treatment says in a clinical study it slowed the progression of the disease by 75% over 3 years, which could change someone's life. Huntington's is relatively rare. It's a neurodegenerative disease. It destroys nerve cells in a person's brain. Over time, it causes someone, though, to lose movement and memories. The condition is mostly inherited. It can be fatal within 10 to 20 years of diagnosis. There's no cure. But this new treatment seems to offer a lot of promise. It should be noted, though, it's been tested on a small sample so far, but it's been human tested, 30 people. It's delivered directly to the brain in a surgery, which takes 12 hours. There are plans, though, to submit this to the U.S. Food and Drug Administration next year for marketing approval. So as I mentioned, this isn't a cure, but it is offering some hope, including to my next guests who are in studio. Ronald Reeder is with us. Ronald lost his mother, Judy, to Huntington's. His younger brother, Shale, is also living with Huntington's. Good morning.
Good morning.
And also in studio, his daughter, Tiffany Baird. Good morning.
Hi.
How are you feeling about this? I want to go to the younger generation first.
Yeah, it's super hopeful. Having watched my grandmother go through the advanced stages of Huntington's. I'm the oldest grandchild by 12 years, so my younger cousins don't have memories that I do with our grandmother. So this is just so hopeful for this next generation that it can slow down the progression of the disease, just to give more time with people. So,
when we talk about more time with people, I'm curious, Ronald, when you hear, it could slow the progression by 75%, what might that have meant in like your mom's life, for example?
Yeah, I mean, it could have changed it, greatly for sure. And we're hopeful, for my brother, and everyone else who has it, right, that those type of things. We just hope that it comes to market soon enough, right? I think that's...
Yeah. I know it's a small study, but they were quite blown away by that number, 75% decrease. I guess practically, would it potentially mean a person like your brother perhaps could have like worked longer, or what are the examples of what it would give back?
For sure. I think work longer and be able to enjoy life longer, right? And just it's a game changer. And I think the other thing is that hopefully if they're able to slow it down 75%, maybe they could even get it to 100%, right? Like I think that's one step closer to a cure, perhaps, maybe.
Your mother, you did lose to Huntington's. Yes. Can you tell us a little bit about what it was like for her in terms of her losses? Because I understand this disease, because I know it quite well, just personally speaking. Just so listeners know, it'll plateau for a while, and then all of a sudden the symptoms will hit you and you can kind of drop. What were her losses like? What was it like for her?
I mean, it over time, it was fairly traumatic, right? She did lose, first you lose your ability to walk, right? And then she basically lost her ability to speak, to communicate, to move, really. It really affected all ability of life, right? In the last couple of years, her quality of life was very poor, for sure.
I know it affects people sometimes more mentally, more in your brain or more physically. It depends on the person. When did it start for your mom? How young was she?
I think she was around mid-50, around 50 in her 50s, yeah.
She was quite young.
Yeah. And I think one of the other things is that until they know what it is, it takes a while to get diagnosed, I think, unless you're aware that that's an issue in your family.
What does it get misdiagnosed as often?
Well, I think
Parkinson's is similar.
Yeah. Parkinson's or Alzheimer's, as I've also heard sometimes. Yeah. How is your younger brother or your Uncle Shale doing? Either of you can answer.
Yeah, he's doing well. He's retired now. He is he does have Huntington, so he is living his life to the fullest now. He has two beautiful daughters, my cousins, who are in high school. One's learning how to drive now, so that's both scary and exciting. But he gets to be a part of that, and he's loving it. He collects Volkswagen Beetles and Volkswagen cars, so he's just loving that.
You guys have been very involved in trying to help locally as well. You do the go-karting for Huntington's. There's this event that happens every year to raise awareness. How does the fundraiser work?
It's definitely one of those fundraisers where it's the most fun fundraiser, to be cheesy. You raise money and then you race go-karts around a track. It's at Thunder Rapids every year, super early in the morning. It's a really great fundraiser. This year in September, we raised $30,000 in event itself, and over the years, they've raised, what was it, over?
I think it's over seven. I have a number that says over $750,000.
Yeah, I was going to say it was over 700,000. So it's just great.
I'm asking about it because obviously that's about, families individually like yours just coming together to try to find some hope, to try to fund some research. And then here we are sitting today with this news of this incredible study. There's been some time since there's been any news that was hopeful. What was it like in your family, when because this is genetically passed along? What was it like in your family when this news came?
We were definitely overjoyed. There were probably some tears that were shed. Just like I remember the last time there was a breakthrough when they were able to they ran tests and they were able to cure, or not maybe cure, but slow the progression in mice. And I was like 12 or 13 years old at the time. So that was quite a long time ago now. But that was the last time that there was like a major breakthrough like this. So it's just incredible. It's so hopeful for this next generation.
One of the devastating things about Huntington's is you have a 50% of it, chance of it passing down if a parent has it. What are your concerns about it? I know there's this decision about whether or not you might be tested genetically for it, because you could find out or you could not. It's very personal.
Yeah. I would say it's good to find out, like it's your decision. But I don't know, just that knowledge of knowing that you have it and there's no cure, that's very difficult. So that's kind of where I'm at.
You haven't gone to find out yet. Yeah, waiting to see. Does it change how you live your life?
No, I've always kind of just like seeing how like my grandmother, she always lived her life to her fullest. Like if there was a garage sale, that was her thing. If we were driving to go meet somebody for dinner, we would stop to go to that garage sale. So I've kind of lived my life like that, live it to the fullest and do everything I can. So, yeah.
Are you the same way, Ronald? Because obviously you're the same. Your mother, died of this.
Yes. Yeah. I would say so. Yes.
So have you been tested ever?
Well, at one, I did once try for testing years ago.
Yeah.
And at that time they weren't able to get the gene specific enough.
Got it.
And so they weren't it was of no inconclusive.
Got it.
And then since then, I mean, now they have it down where you could get conclusive, but I haven't done that. I just, at this point, I think if they come up where they have this thing that could slow it by 75%, then I think there would be a huge benefit in getting tested, because then you would, you could participate, right, to do that or whatever. But at this point, I don't see it.
Well, let's leave this hopeful, which is the reason you both came in. So thank you both for being here and telling us about your family's journey with Huntington's.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
That's Ronald Reeder and his daughter, Tiffany Baird. They've both personally seen the impacts of Huntington's disease in their family. The new experimental gene therapy treatment for Huntington's disease could eventually lead to slowing progression.